The period from 1814 to 1914, often termed the Long Peace, is a fascinating chapter in European history that embodies a remarkable yet deceptive tranquility in international relations. Characterized largely by the dominance of the United Kingdom, this era saw the British Empire establishing itself as the preeminent global power, fostering an environment of relative stability across Europe. The British maintained this peace through a combination of naval supremacy, economic influence, and diplomatic skill, which, while effective at curbing large-scale conflicts, did not eliminate underlying tensions that simmered just beneath the surface. The United Kingdom's hegemony allowed it to act as a stabilizing force, promoting a balance of power that discouraged direct confrontations among the major European states. However, this period was not devoid of strife. Rather, it was marked by shifting dynamics that foretold a more tumultuous future. One of the most critical developments during this time was the rise of Germany, particularly after its unification in 1871. The emergence of Germany as a significant power challenged British dominance and altered the balance of power in Europe, leading to increased tensions that would ultimately contribute to the outbreak of World War I. In addition to the challenges posed by Germany, the late 19th century saw intensifying imperial competition outside Europe, particularly in Africa and Asia. European powers were embroiled in a race for colonies, leading to conflicts over territory and resources. This competition, fueled by nationalism and industrial ambition, created rivalries that would later ignite during the First World War. Furthermore, the rapid advancements in industrial technology and weaponry revolutionized warfare and military strategy, making the prospect of conflict more devastating and imminent. The culmination of these factors set the stage for the catastrophic events of the First World War, which erupted in 1914 and lasted until 1919. This conflict not only shattered the relative peace that had prevailed during the century, but also marked a dramatic shift in global politics. The war's unprecedented scale and the immense human and economic toll it exacted brought an end to the long-standing European order and ushered in new political realities. Among the most significant transformations was the Russian Revolution of 1917. In the wake of the war, Russia, facing internal strife amid its military failures, underwent a radical upheaval that resulted in the establishment of the Soviet Union. This revolution not only altered the political landscape of Eastern Europe, but also introduced a new ideological player into global politics: communism, challenging existing capitalist systems and setting the stage for ideological conflicts in the 20th century. The war also heralded the rise of the United States as a key player on the world stage. Initially remaining neutral, the U.S. entered the conflict in 1917, ultimately tipping the balance in favor of the Allies. The war catalyzed the United States' emergence as a global superpower, leading to its significant economic and political influence in international affairs. In addition to the geopolitical shifts, the First World War also signaled a notable transformation in economic power. The transition of financial dominance from London to New York reflected a broader realignment in global capitalism. The war disrupted traditional economic systems, leading to the US dollar becoming the world's leading currency and establishing New York as the new financial capital. Thus, while the Long Peace was marked by a relative absence of conflict, it was underpinned by rivalries and tensions that would erupt with catastrophic consequences in the early 20th century. The First World War was a crucible that forged a new international order, reshaping not only the boundaries of nations, but also the ideological and economic realities of the global landscape. As we study this period, we must recognize the ways in which the legacies of these profound transformations continue to influence international relations and global politics today. The aftermath of World War I was a seismic shift in the global political landscape, producing profound transformations that would resonate for decades to come. The war not only led to widespread devastation, but also to the disintegration of empires that had dominated for centuries. The Austro-Hungarian and Ottoman empires, once powerful political entities in Central Europe and the Middle East, crumbled under the weight of internal nationalistic aspirations and external pressures. This disintegration fostered a chaotic realignment of borders, paving the way for an array of new nation-states, many of which were carved out based on ethnic lines. The new political map of Europe was redrawn, often giving rise to new tensions and conflicts rooted in the unresolved nationalistic sentiments. In the wake of the war, the spirit of nationalism began to surge beyond the confines of Europe, erupting in Europe's overseas territories as colonized peoples sought self-determination and independence. The rhetoric of self-determination, famously championed by U.S. President Woodrow Wilson, inspired many colonized nations to push for autonomy, thus igniting movements that would eventually lead to decolonization in the mid-20th century. However, in countries like Germany, the consequences of the war were particularly dire. The Treaty of Versailles imposed harsh reparations and territorial losses, fostering a deep sense of betrayal and resentment among the German populace. This environment of humiliation and economic hardship created fertile ground for extremist ideologies to flourish, setting the stage for Adolf Hitler's rise to power just 15 years later. The narrative of a stab in the back became a rallying point for nationalist and fascist movements, illustrating how the legacy of the war continued to shape political dynamics long after its conclusion. Moreover, the war created unique opportunities for Japan to expand its influence in Asia, reflecting the shifts in power dynamics as European nations struggled to recover from the war's devastation. The diminished European dominance allowed Japan to assert itself more assertively on the global stage, further complicating the emerging geopolitical landscape in the years that followed. The consequences of World War I also irrevocably altered the framework of international relations, particularly by catalyzing key ideas that would influence global politics for years to come. Central to this was the principle of self-determination, which provided a moral legitimacy to nationalist movements and encouraged democratic governance. This shift in perspective drew attention to the importance of legitimate representation and respect for national identity in the formation of international relations. The war also served as a critical impetus for the establishment of international relations as an academic discipline. Scholars began to grasp the urgent need to understand the causes and consequences of such devastating conflict, responding to the realization that war represented one of humanity's gravest threats. By 1919, efforts to formalize the study of international relations gained traction, most notably marked by the establishment of the Woodrow Wilson Chair of International Politics at University College Wales, Aberystwyth, the first dedicated position in the world for the study of international politics. Before this formalization, scholars had studied international relations topics under the auspices of older disciplines such as law, philosophy, economics, and diplomacy. However, the cataclysmic events of World War I drove scholars to confront three fundamental questions. What precipitated the war? What lessons could be gleaned to avert future conflicts? And how could a new international order be constructed to uphold principles such as those embodied in the League of Nations? As we moved into the subsequent decade, the specter of another conflict loomed on the horizon. The Second World War, which spanned from 1939 to 1945, not only reaffirmed the relevance of international relations, but also signified the emergence of two superpowers, the United States and the Soviet Union. This shift demanded a reevaluation of global politics, prompting scholars and practitioners alike to consider new ideological frameworks, political dynamics, and the consequences of the Cold War. In summary, the lasting legacy of World War I is reflected in how it reshaped national boundaries, invigorated nationalist movements, catalyzed the growth of academic disciplines, and marked the transition from European dominance to a more multipolar world order. The ideational and geopolitical transformations initiated during this tumultuous period remain critical to our understanding of contemporary international relations, as they lay the groundwork for many of the conflicts and alliances we observe today.